It's an opportunity for you to participate and give your feedback and tell all the people coming to speaking what you think about some of the issues that are coming up in Burlington. There is a door prize. So if you haven't entered yet, there's a door prize over here for a $25 gift certificate from City Market. We'll be drawing at the end of the NPA meeting. Please enter the door prize. Put your name and just put your name in, I think. Yeah, name, and we'll be drawing at the end. But you gotta stay to get the prize. Our way to prize. So we hope you stay for this, and I will be getting the dessert out in a moment. If you keep your spoons, please, for dessert, or your fork for dessert, because we've already added utensils, so don't take those back. And we'll be out with a minute. If you didn't get a chance to give us a little bit of a donation, we appreciate that. We've been running short the last 3 months, and we're financing this on our own. So if you can put a little extra in, we appreciate that, because it's a bunch of volunteers doing this, and we want to make sure that we continue to offer good quality food. Okay, so thank you so much for coming. We'll be back again next month, and stay for the NPA. And yeah.
So my name is Max Tracy. I'm one of the city councilors here in the Old North End. And on election day, we tried to pass out as many of these city council updates as we possibly could, but we didn't get to everybody. So if you didn't get one on election day and would like one, I'm going to be coming around circulating these. So feel free to grab one. It has a lot of good information about different things happening in the neighborhood. Thanks. Enjoy your dinner.
And now that we have your guys' attention, I feel like we might as well just kind of kick in and start. So we do have a bit of a financial report, which Jim Lockridge will come up and talk about in a minute. Preview of next month's agenda. We had a request to talk about weatherization and winter heat efficiency. We will probably have people from Efficiency Vermont, CVOEO, the state. I'm looking at Jacob because he's Burlington Electric, so we're working on getting all those people here next month. Can you not hear me, Chris, at all? So, because people are too loud. Well, I'm not as compelling as Janet. Janet, makes everybody be quiet, and nobody cares about listening to me. So maybe we'll wait a minute and start in a minute.
This one is like this. It's much better. Is the other one too? This one is more muffled. I don't know why. What's that? I was thinking about it, but I'm just facilitating the ability. Sound check. Yes. Well, this one's great. You want to start the meeting? No. Oh. Well, let's see. Oh, this one's better too now.
Good evening, everybody. I know you're here for dinner, but there's actually an NPA meeting about to happen. Louder. I can't be louder without being annoying, but I guess it might be. No? Okay. I'm always loud and boisterous. So, unfortunately, to interrupt dinner, there is an NPA meeting, but don't get scared. It's actually a good thing, the NPA meeting. Most people get up right now and leave. Some reason it just seems to be the history, but don't leave, because the dinner is supposed to get you here to the NPA meeting so you can be civic with the rest of us. So we're going to do a couple quick announcements, and then we're going to have a little slideshow about the Winooski Valley, Winooski Corridor. Yep. Yep, the Winooski Corridor, that thing, with bicycles. We're still in the process of writing our bylaws for our NPA to make it more effective and less annoying and make it more interesting so people stay around. And if you wish to participate in said bylaw writing event, please talk to Amanda. Who? Do you want to bang a pan? Well, we can show kitten videos, and everyone will pay attention.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bang, bang, bang. It sounds like a chicken house. Would you guys like to do your slide presentation?
Yeah.
That would be wonderful. And Jim's going to do as you're setting up. He's just going to do a quick financial thing.
Oh, you're going to do
Just, and it takes 1 second. Sorry. Who started?
Yeah, we call it a financial report, but at this point, it's really just me reminding you that a few meetings ago, we did a whiteboard project that gave us a whole bunch of ideas for ways to either make it more comfortable to bring more people to participate in this meeting every month. And we'll be approaching the City Council seeking some supports that'll make those items happen. So thanks for standing by for news on that.
Is this on? All right, if you can hear my voice, clap twice. If you can hear my voice, clap twice. If you can hear my voice, clap twice. All right, thank you. Hey, quick question for you all. Who drives on Winooski Ave? Who walks on Winooski Ave? And who bikes on Winooski Ave? Okay, great, a lot of you. So there is a Winooski Ave corridor study. What is that? It's reimagining what we want Winooski Ave to look like in the future. And myself, Jacob Flanagan, and Alyssa Faber are your representatives on this study. So here we go. I want to give you a little update on what's going on. This is not the right slide, but a little update of where we are at with this. So we got a bunch of public comments about what issues people are having with the Winooski Ave, and we also firmed up what our goals are for what we want as a community for this street. And recently, we just had a meeting where we've decided what our key focus areas are on this street, where we're going to spend the money on engineering, basically. And our next step of that process, after we get the engineering studies done, is those engineers are going to come up with a bunch of alternative solutions for us to look at and see if those address some of the issues that we've come up with. So here's a little graph of the timeline and where we're at. It's a long timeline, so it's good to kind of have a sense of that. We just did this one right here in October, and our next meetings are going to be in January and February. So in February of 2019, we're going to have a public meeting of all those alternatives, and we'll try to prep you for that, but we would love to have you guys come out and see those alternatives when we bring them all out and get your input on all of them and see if they actually address the concerns that this community has. Just quickly, I want to show you, and if you have questions afterwards, come to me or Alyssa afterwards and ask questions. We'd love to get you involved, but I just wanted to quickly show you what those focus areas were. So here's a cool heat map of, these are the crashes that a heat map of the crashes on Winooski Ave. And you can see they're very much centered downtown. And then here is a heat map of all the comments, the public comments that this group has gotten about Winooski Ave. So obviously, we saw this. Key focus areas are very much in line with where these heat spots are. So what do we got? Facility 1. So focus area 1 is Riverside Ave, with the intersection of Riverside Ave and Winooski. Number 2 is, what is this? North Street to Decatur Street, this stretch of Winooski Ave. Because I know there was a lot of comments about, do we want to make Winooski Ave more one way? Do we want to make Winooski Ave more both directions? So that was a key spot to think about. All right, next one. Pearl Street. Pearl Street is a very complicated and interesting intersection, so this was picked as one of the focus points. And Pearl Street to Main Street, basically the downtown corridor of Winooski Ave. This is where, on that heat map, you see most of the crash incidences. There's the 4 lanes of traffic. It's a very, yeah. Next one. Coming off of, this is Main Street intersection, another really busy intersection. And lastly, Main to Maple. So it's a kind of strange transition from that downtown to the South End residential neighborhood. So those are our focus areas. If you have more questions or comments or anything you want to get more involved, come talk to us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jay and Alyssa. Volunteer position, volunteer time. I believe next thing, preview of next month's agenda, but I don't have that, so, and I don't see Amanda. A review of the election results. I don't need to see, I just, I don't know who's doing the review of election results. Anybody? Anybody worthy, capable, informed? Yep, firm and loud. Thank you, Alyssa. Thank you. Any public announcements? I'm going to move right on to the interesting stuff. Public, would you like to make any announcements? Yes. We have one public announcement.
Hi everyone, I'm Representative Jill Krowinski. I represent the Old North End in downtown with Kurt McCormick. And we just wanted to say thank you for re-electing us on Tuesday. We really appreciate your support. And we'll be announcing some coffee hours and getting back out, knocking on some more doors to hear what your thoughts and concerns are for the upcoming session. So just wanted to say thank you.
Hi everybody, I'm April from the North End Studios. So we're the, as you heard before, we're the managers of this space, and we also run North End Studios over on North Winooski Avenue. So I'm here because I have two special events that are coming up that I wanted everybody to know about. The first one is our International Festival, which we held every year out at the fairgrounds. This is our 26th year. This is the flyer about it. We have a great website if you want to check it out. We basically celebrate all the different parts of our community, the different ethnic groups, the different people with various interests. Just everybody is welcome at our festival. We have grown so much since the old days when we were at Memorial Auditorium. Now we've been at the fairgrounds for probably 15 years. We get up to 7,000 people during the 3-day weekend, and we hope that you'll be part of that 7,000. So please take a look. I have more copies of the flyer if you'd like it, or just go to VermontInternationalFestival.com on the internet. The second one is particularly interesting, I think, because it's here. Most of you probably know that First Night went out of business at the end of their last First Night, which was last year. And the city of Burlington felt, and many of the organizations that are supporting the arts in this community felt it was really important that we had something to replace it. So this is part of a long-term development to having an event that is actually very representative of all the people in the community as well. But for this first year, we're just coming up with something that will be fun and good for everybody, and we're looking to expand it and get your input for the following year. So we were one of 7 locations that were chosen to be sites during this new event, which is called Highlight Burlington, I guess. And so all day long here on New Year's Eve, from noon on, there are going to be events in this building on these 2 floors. We're going to have a food court down here. We're going to have children's activities and some smaller performances down on this stage. Especially from 12 to 4, that's the time when there'll be things specifically for kids. There's going to be ongoing craft activities with the One Arts Center, which you're all familiar with in the neighborhood. And then things will evolve toward a more general audience in the late afternoon and early evening. Groups like Gua Gua, A2BT, if you know, are African refugee hip-hop artists, I guess. And a variety. So we're representing everyone in the community, in this building, having fun. All the events are, you get into them by having a bracelet, and you can read a little bit more about it on this form. Then we're having one special event starting at 11 p.m. going to 1 a.m., and that is a show that's called, I gotta get it right, 60s Flashback with Mellow Yellow. And they're a live band that's going to do music from the 60s and early 70s, and there's a live light show that's going to be projected behind them. This is with psychedelic colors and things like that. And that's actually mixed in front of you, so you can go watch them do it. Anyway, I hope you will come. I hope you will read this flyer, and thank you very much for coming tonight. Oh yeah, we'll tell you about the more details in December. Good point, good point.
Hi, I'm Lucy. I live on Blodgett Street. Has anybody heard that there's a really scary plane coming to the airport in the fall of next year? It's called the F-35. Anybody heard about the F-35? I hope so. We don't want it. We don't want it, and we're not giving up. There's actually 2 groups working very hard against this plane. We're going to keep working. If you want to get involved, talk to me. Look at the Peace and Justice Center schedule for meetings, and it's going to be a bit of a battle, but we really want to push hard to keep this plane from coming. It's designed to carry nuclear weapons, and it's really bad for kids and adults, and we don't want it. So if you want to talk about that or work on it, just come see me. Thanks.
Hi everyone, how's everyone doing? I said, how's everybody doing? All right, yeah. So I just wanted to stand up and say thank you. My name is Brian Chena. I'm one of the state representatives for part of the Old North End. Thank you for re-electing me. It's an honor to represent part of the Old North End and to represent Burlington. And if anyone has any questions or concerns, even if you're not in my district, I'm happy to talk with you at any time. So thank you.
Hello, my name is Sydney Dermick. I help run Nightshade Kitchen, and I also work at North End Studios. We have a performance coming up this Wednesday, November 14th, with Warm Water and Emma Cook, and we also have food that's going to be cooked by a guest chef, Michael, from the Wine Bar in South Burlington. And it's not as great a deal as this. It does cost money for a plate, but we actually pay our musicians, which is a big deal. And, yeah, right? And Foam also sells beer there, and it's $10 for food and beer, and it's a good deal. Thanks very much. Hope to see you there.
What is this? Okay, I'm going to do it like this. Hi, I'm Charlie Messing, and I'm just very opinionated. No, actually, I'm part of the group that tries to coordinate the city's activities in response to the capitalized city's activities and decisions. I just want to say how splendid it is to see the empty flatness where there was supposed to already be a skyscraper between Bank and Cherry Street. Doesn't it look much better now? I think it looks much better. I'm hoping that he does sell it to somebody who's building a shorter building, not as tall a building, and staying within the zoning code. Wow. Okay, City Hall Park, we've done great collecting signatures, and election day, it's the day before yesterday, went great. We have just almost enough signatures, and we'll have it on the March ballot, and the people of Burlington will vote on whether to take half the trees out of City Hall Park. Not because they're sick, but because we want to move the paths over a little, because we have an idea, and it involves moving the paths over a little, period. So the mayor may say, oh, thank you. He may say that he's going to do it anyway, but I think we should show him that he works for us. Basically, they have to do something that represents what the people in the city want. And if we want trees, we should have trees, don't you think? Okay, I have to stop now. Stop me on the street anytime and I'll talk your ear off. Not really though, not literally. Thank you so much. This dinner is so great, and I hope you have a wonderful time.
And Charlie will be here all week, in case you wanted to.
What's that?
We're going to move right to our next agenda item, which is the Cambrian demise, and Eric Farrell will be presenting.
Awesome. I'm afraid. Whoa, go back. My name's Eric Farrell. I'm going to give you a quick update on where we are on Cambrian Rise. Cambrian Rise is a project we're doing on North Avenue where the orphanage is, now called Liberty House. We're approved for 770 units and about 150 some odd thousand square feet of commercial space, including a hotel. So this is the orphanage. It's 65 units. It opened on July 1, 2017. This building right here is a classroom building that was formerly used by Burlington College and the diocese before that. We'll close on the purchase of that building sometime before the end of the year. It's currently owned by People's United Bank that foreclosed on Burlington College and took title to that building. And we're going to build a large addition on it. We're going to add a story to it. And when it's completed, about a year or so from now, it'll have 90 units and 20,000 square feet of commercial space on the first floor. Then we'll move on to Building C, which is a brand new building, 100 units, 102 units, about 8,000 square feet of commercial space. Champlain Housing Trust broke ground on 76 units of subsidized family housing. That'll be open in August of 2019. In front of that is a lot of land I sold to Cathedral Square. They're going to break ground sometime next year. They'll build 70 units of senior housing. We're presently doing the first leg of the new public street. It's about 500 or 600 feet. We did a lot of work in North Avenue about a couple of weeks ago. In the first quarter of next year, we're going to break ground on a 90, actually, why don't you flip ahead? One more. So next year, around April, we're going to break ground on this building. It's 115 units, be condominiums. 28 of them will be sold to Champlain Housing Trust, and they'll resell them as inclusionary units. Building I is a commercial building. Go ahead, next page. So we talked about BG. Oh yeah, so I'm going to flip back to this. So BG, the first building I talked about, 90 units. This is our new public street that we just started building. We'll have a traffic light right here. This is Cathedral Square. They're going to break ground next year. This is the building that I said had 90 units in it. There's also a transportation hub on the corner of it. I think it shows better on the next slide. So this is basically a climate-controlled bus stop where you'll be able to get real-time monitoring of buses going in either direction. Next. This is a view of that building from North Avenue looking south. This is the classroom building that we're adding this big addition to, also putting another floor on this building. The orphanage actually sits right here. Next. This is another view of that. There's a pedestrian connection. You can go from the North Avenue sidewalk underneath the building to get to the inside of the site. And there's a picture of how the building will look when it's completed. About a year from now, you can see the orphanage or Liberty House in the background with the cupola. So building M, we just talked about a little bit, condominiums, 115 units. We hope to break ground April 1st. Take about 18 months to build. Units will come online in the fall of 2020. This is when you drive down that first street and you drive by Cathedral Square and drive by Champlain Housing Trust building. This is that building M. You'll see on your left a small commercial space. It's a 6-story building. All the units have balconies. This one faces the street. The next shot is another view of that building looking back up towards North Avenue. You can see Champlain Housing Trust building that's under construction now.
This is a view of that building. If you're standing in the park, you may remember, some of you may remember that we sold 12 acres of the land to the city a couple of years ago. These are west-facing units in front of the public park. This is a view of that same condominium building if you were viewing it from the park with some amenities, residential amenities. And then this is the inside courtyard of that building. That's the main entrance, structured parking below and visitor parking. So the next building is, that I'll show you, is Building I. So we're going to build a public street that goes down here, comes across, comes back up onto North Avenue. So Building I is a commercial building. And it sits on this corner of the road, and it's next to the green, and it's a accelerator generator building being sponsored by Vermont Works. And it's basically a facility of 60,000 square feet where if you're an entrepreneur, you have an idea for a new business and you need mentoring or sponsorship or financial support or some kind of guidance to turn your business into a reality, much like Dealer.com did several years ago, then this is what that building is designed for. We're pretty excited about it. It's a huge piece of economic development in this, it'll be beneficial not only for us but for the city. This is a first illustration of what that building could look like, 5 stories. Another view of it, if you're looking up, this is that North Street that connects back up to North Avenue and then connects across here. This is just another view of the building showing outside seating. There's an event space on the roof. And then, so if this is Texaco Beach. If you're hovering in your helicopter over Lake Champlain looking back at the project, this is essentially what it'll look like when it's all done in 2025. Condominium building, 72 units. Another condominium building, about 70, 75 units. R is a small boutique hotel, somewhere around 50 rooms. In between those two buildings is a green space that we've been in discussions with a company called City Acres who would do an urban farm. We're pretty excited about that as well. And this is the city park. This is a view of the 5-story or 6-story hotel if you're coming down North Road. Lakeview Cemetery is on your right, and that Innovation Commons building is on your left, and that's the hotel. That's another view of the hotel, and there's a plaza, and it sort of attaches to this 75-unit condominium building. This building's probably a couple of years out. This is another view of that building, 6 stories. If you were standing in the park, looking back towards the building. And then another view of this is also condominiums, and this is the first condominium building I told you about that we want to start in April of 2019. So if all goes well, we'll be done in 7 or 8 years. And we're taking deposits tonight if you want to buy a condo.
Does anybody have any questions for Eric?
Eric has so kindly come to, I can't remember how many NPA, and in terms of a developer, you've been really great at presenting your ideas of the city and projects.
I have a question.
You have a bunch of questions?
We have a bunch of questions. Go ahead.
Oh.
Hello. Hi. My question is related to wastewater, and 2 days ago we just voted to improve the city's wastewater treatment plants, and I'm curious of which of the 3 city wastewater treatment plants will all of this wastewater go to, and does there capacity to take on all of this wastewater?
So yes, it'll go to the main plant at the foot of College Street or Main Street, wherever, or it's actually at the foot of Maple Street. And we do have we've been granted capacity. There's plenty of capacity in that plant for this. Half of this project, or the front part of the project, is going to gravity feed into North Avenue. most of the units are going to go into a pump station, and there's going to be telemetry on that pump station that will allow the folks at the main plant to control when that pump station discharges into the system, so that if there's a storm event or whatever and they are concerned about overburdening their system from other sources, then they can turn the pumps off, and we have plenty of storage so they can maintain it. I think they do the same thing for Burlington High School presently.
Thank you. My name is Kit, and I live here in Ward 3. Closer to the mic. Okay, Kit from Ward 3. So I noticed toward the beginning you described a unit of housing. I think it was 90 units of inclusionary housing. That would be perpetually affordable housing that fits into the inclusionary zoning.
Yeah, so go back to the aerial. Yeah. No, the other one from the front.
Yep.
So the inclusionary requirement is 25% of all the units, whether they're rental or for sale. So we made a deal with the nonprofits to sell them. I sold Cathedral Square and Champlain Housing Trust each their lots at a pretty significant discount, and this is all part of my development agreement with the city. And in exchange for that, their units, they have 125 units that will be perpetually affordable, and that satisfies the inclusionary requirement to up to 500 rental units, including theirs, although we don't have a current plan to build 500 rental units. Right now we're hovering around 400. On all that, and our current plan reflects 370 condominium units, so 25% of those have to be perpetually affordable, meeting the city's inclusionary requirement.
Okay, so 25% of the condominium units will also be perpetually affordable?
That's
it's not
correct.
Just all the ones that are in that one building?
No. Well, the inclusionary units are in two buildings. 28 of them are in this building, and you can't see this building, but then the rest of them will likely be in one building.
Okay.
Both of those will be sponsored by Champlain Housing Trust.
Okay, so that gets to my question, which would be how it got decided that all the inclusionary zoning units would be in these two different big buildings. And behind that is my understanding. I was living here in Burlington when the inclusionary zoning ordinance got passed, and my understanding at the time was that the city of Burlington thought that it was very important for the perpetually affordable units to be intermixed within other units. And I feel sad if in fact all the inclusionary zoning units will be in two separate buildings. I believe the only socially sustainable way to do inclusionary zoning is to have the people in those units living, down the hall from upstairs from the other folks, so that you have true economic integration. So I wonder how the decision got made to have them all in separate buildings, and maybe it's not too late to consider having them more intermingled, which I believe is an important socially sustainable aspect of inclusionary zoning.
So if you are building one building, what you say would be true, but the ordinance doesn't. The ordinance requires 25% of all units in a project to be, well, 25% in this district. A lot of districts it's only 15. But it doesn't. It's not specific that if you have multiple buildings in a project that the units have to be distributed equally among the buildings. So the distribution was worked out in our development agreement and approved by the DRB a couple of years ago. They did insist that it was in more than one building, but they did not insist that it was in all buildings.
I'm just wondering if you can clarify for me the buffer between the development and the bike path. How much land is it going to be forested still, or is it going to be totally cleared?
So go to a site plan. So the original site is 33.65 acres and it extended down to Texaco Beach. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but so we sold 12 acres of that 33 acres to the city, including Texaco Beach and including the Stonehouse. So, and the city put that in their urban reserve category of parks. In other words, it's not a park that's going to be developed with soccer fields or any other kind of improvements. It's intended to remain a natural area. So the only thing that the city has planned, besides community gardens and maybe an expansion of those, is that there's an historic trail that goes through there. You can get from North Avenue down to the bike path, but when you get down towards the end, it's pretty treacherous. So they are going to upgrade that gravel trail, and then we are going to build a paved bike path connection from the foot of this public street all the way to the bike path at a 5% grade, so that you can get from North Avenue to the bike path as an accessible route at no greater than 5%.
I have one question that I told I would ask. You're going to be putting about 2,000 people roughly in your development. So projected 2,000 cars plus or minus. Now, how does that affect the North Avenue corridor, the study that the city spent an inordinate amount of time and effort in? Is there any plans to ease traffic for 2,000 more cars on North Ave?
Well, so I'm not a traffic engineer, but we had to do a pretty comprehensive traffic study that we submitted to the state and DPW. I think the estimate's hard to predict exactly how many people will live here. I think the estimate is probably more like 12 or 1,300 people. And because it's certainly not more than two persons per household. A lot of the units, especially the rentals, are 1 bedrooms and studios. But it was pretty comprehensively studied by a traffic engineer and reviewed by DPW, and the results were pretty positive in terms of negligible impact on traffic overall. I mean, it certainly will generate traffic, but it was at acceptable levels according to DPW.
Yeah, I hope, number one, you have parking, and number two, it's nice that you're building I think it's idiocy, quite frankly, that you're building most of the low-income housing in one building. It's like building a project like you find in the city, and I don't know who approved that, but they should be interspersed. Low income should be interspersed with greater income people. This is idiocy. You built a project. That's what you've done. Low income housing in one area, and I want to know about the parking situation.
Hi. My question is, how did you figure out the process of where the affordable units would be compared to other things? How did you figure out not to intersperse them? How was that choice made?
Well, part of that, when we worked with...
I did hear you say, I'm sorry, I did hear you say earlier that it wasn't required. I was just looking for much more of an answer.
So we went through a year-long process with the city and the Vermont Land Trust and Champlain Housing Trust and Cathedral Square And Cathedral Square was pretty insistent that they wanted the front parcel on the corner. CHT, of course, this is a project that a community you have to build from front to back. You can't just build all over the place. But the only thing that came out of those long discussions was that they didn't want all the inclusionary in one building. So all of the seniors are in, obviously they're in one building. The subsidized family housing, which is going to be owned by CHT, is in that building. And then we did agree that we would put the inclusionary in 2 buildings.
So I think you haven't answered my question.
Okay.
I think my question is, why did you want it this way? Or how did you decide, oh, let's segregate people?
I don't think there's a magic to how we got there. We just decided that it would be in 2 buildings rather than 1 and not in 4 buildings.
Thanks.
Yeah, we can take one more question, sorry, City Council.
Hello, this is called the Innovation Commons, and I'm curious because nothing about this really seems innovative. It's pretty ugly, and there's not any discussions about solar panels, composting with your community gardens. So I'm curious if there's any sort of input about how to make these more visually appealing and maybe less buildings. I don't know if there's a necessity for all of this housing that won't be affordable and a boutique hotel, which seems a bit odd to me. Could you talk a little bit about how it looks and how it could maybe look better, and if there's any input on that and how to make it more environmentally friendly?
And are you talking about how to make the commons look better or the whole project look better?
Oh, the whole thing. All of the buildings that you showed were pretty reminiscent of South Burlington or the buildups that happened near Shaw's or in Winooski, where everything looks very uniform and the same. And something that's really appealing about Burlington is the old buildings and the historic structure. And this isn't adding anything to Burlington, in my opinion.
Well, I respect your opinion, and as you can imagine, I don't agree. So we think that we go a long ways towards making our buildings as interesting and as diverse as we can. We do plan to put solar on all the roofs. We have a state-of-the-art stormwater system. This is a very sustainable community, which was part of our commitment in our development agreement with the city. I certainly appreciate and understand that some people won't like all of it, some people won't like any of it, but we're making a best effort to build high-quality buildings that will stand the test of time, and I appreciate your opinion, even though I may not agree with you.
Thank you very much, Eric, for coming. Again, you've been here probably 6, 7 times over this project, a lot, which is more than most other developers. Like the project or not, he's participating in a process, which makes it a little bit easier for us to grasp. That said, a lot of the buildings that she was talking about, she didn't like, are your buildings, I assume, so we can actually go see those buildings and see what we're going to look forward to, like it or not. It's a good example.
So, I don't know her name. Tell her she should take a tour of Liberty House. You should call me sometime and take a tour of Liberty House and talk in more detail about our buildings and our design. I'd be happy to spend the time with you to do that, if you would like to do that.
Okay. Thank you very much again, Eric. I believe we're going to have a nice Brian and
some of them are in this newsletter, so if you haven't seen it, grab this newsletter. It's on tables around the room tonight. I'm Brian Pine from Ward 3. I live on Crowley Street. And the changes that are being considered for the city's ordinance that ensures that new development will include affordable housing. There's some changes. That ordinance was passed in 1990. It's being kind of updated. It's a process that started more than a year ago. It's through a committee, really it's two committees. So you can get two city council committees together for the price of one, and you can come and give us input because we're really looking for more feedback on those changes. There's a public hearing on December 11th at 5:30, Contois Auditorium in City Hall, to hear a presentation on what those changes will entail and to gather public feedback on the direction we're going with this. You'll see in this flyer, this newsletter, that I am putting together a proposal that will regulate short-term rentals, and that's just another word for Airbnb. So Airbnb is something that will continue to be available if this ordinance were to become in effect, but it's basically trying to get a handle on Airbnb as a potential threat to our housing stock, and that is that every unit that goes to Airbnb full-time, not someone renting out their room in their house, but a unit of housing that goes to Airbnb is a unit less of housing for people who live here year-round. And we got to be accommodating for folks who really count on that little extra income for that room in their house, but it's not necessarily the same thing as people buying buildings and units to use for that purpose. So we're trying to grapple with that. It's going to be complicated. It's going to be as probably hard fought as the Uber fight, which was, Councilor Hartnett can attest, and Max was there. Uber, that was pretty intense. As soon as this goes out, I'm sure the Airbnb industry will be all over us. Stay tuned. Public Safety Committee, of which I sit, is looking at a homeless encampment policy. We just got it this week, so I haven't actually had a chance to read it, but we'll be meeting next week on the 15th to hear what that policy will entail. It's basically dealing with encampments, I think primarily on public land, but I'm not actually 100% sure, I have to confess. Stephen Marshall has been a really fierce advocate to ensure that a process that comes forward is one that's humane, is fair, gives people plenty of protections and notice. So I hope we reach that point. That's my goal as well. Unfortunately, our traffic stop data still shows that our police, even with some great training, have continued to exhibit the implicit racial bias that many of us harbor as people growing up in a society that has got racism embedded in it, and I think we all have to acknowledge that. The police are really not that much different. They just happen to have guns and badges. So when we see them pulling folks over, unfortunately, the stop rate, the search rate, and all of that is disproportionately high for people of color, especially black people, to be honest. It's actually not the case for drivers of Asian descent, at least in this community, or white people with white skin, basically. So if you have black skin or brown skin in Burlington, your chances of getting pulled over and use of force are much higher. We need to be really upfront about that with the police department and come up with specific ways to change that, I think. And that's something that I'm working on with the Public Safety Committee. We have a thing called the Business Improvement District, which is still just a concept, but it's to take the idea of the marketplace. It would no longer be its own separate entity and move business improvement to other neighborhoods and streets within the downtown. It is still a concept, and we're going to engage in a much more, I like this word, robust public discussion about it, because that has not happened to date. And the consultant wasn't aware that we have hundreds of residents living in our downtown. So we need to come back to that with our consultant and really engage in a public process. Stay tuned for a public gathering to talk about this coming up. We don't have a date yet, but it'll be in December. And I don't think we should do anything with our downtown until we've heard from the people who actually live there. We certainly are hearing from the business people, but we haven't asked the folks who live there.
The Airbnb thing. We have an Airbnb next to our house, and the last few people have been better. But essentially, he didn't interview them properly, and we had a bunch of drug dealers go in there for a period of time. We've talked to that Airbnb owner, and he seems to be interviewing them better. But there has to be an interview process of some kind so that you don't get drug dealers into those places.
Thanks, good point. Yeah, do you want to hear Max is, because I'm done with my part, or we can just open it up to questions and then.
Okay, I will also want to follow up on the Airbnb. I'm so glad you're bringing this up. No matter how complicated it is, I will be cheering you on to deal with this, because I've also learned about communities like, say, neighborhoods of New Orleans, for instance, big tourist areas, and there are neighborhoods, communities that are being wrecked because such a high, as soon as you have a high percentage of these single-family houses, as you're talking about, going totally over to Airbnb, you lose the neighborhood. It's really bad. So thank you so much.
Fire away. Max, you gonna go?
Yeah. So two things that I want to talk about are reuse zones. So one of the things that you may have noticed if you've gone to CSWD recently are that the reuse zones have closed, and that's come as a surprise to a lot of folks. And so one of the things that the Old North End councilors worked on was putting forward an ordinance, or not an ordinance, a resolution, asking them to reconsider that, to reopen them, and to consider alternatives. We're still in that process of considering alternatives to that, but it's really unfortunate that that wasn't really communicated as well as it could have been to the public, and that I think that a lot of people relied on those as a way to really not only get rid of stuff, but also find stuff that they could potentially use in their homes. So we're continuing to work on finding solutions to that reuse issue. One of the things that we have done that's been incredibly successful are our dumpster days in the Old North End, and Brian and Jane did the last one, and we're going to be looking to do another one in the spring. If you don't know, that's where we set up a dumpster and let people get rid of all kinds of stuff that they may have accumulated, but who may not have money to actually take that, or transportation to get it far out of the neighborhood. So that's something to keep an eye on, but that's an ad hoc thing on a seasonal basis. We really need something a little bit more consistent, and we're going to be working towards that. The other issue, of course, that's getting a lot of press recently is that of the mall and the lack of development that's taking place at the mall. It's really frustrating for me personally, having raised a lot of questions about this project, seeing a lot of those questions not get answered, but then the project still move forward. To see it continue to sit there is incredibly frustrating, and not only to see it sit there, but to not really have a clear story, because what we've had is a shifting explanation from the developer regarding what exactly is holding it up. Back over the summer, he was saying that it was the city, that he needed the city to pull the permits or to change the permitting so that it allowed him to basically pour the foundation before he had the full funding. Then it became that he needed some opportunity. Well, first, before actually that, it was that he was having issues with the contractor, and he was telling us that the contractors that are local contractors that have a good reputation here were going out of business. Well, Dave Hartnett here, who's also a city councilor, actually called them up because he does his due diligence as well, and he actually found out that they weren't bankrupt at all. So then they still got them to change the permit, and because they said that he was ready to go. If we allowed him to pour the foundation, then he'd be able to go and move forward with the project and then get the funding that he needed after that. Well, that just simply wasn't true, because if that was the case, we would already be seeing the foundation coming together right now. It's been over 2 months since that permission was given by the city council, and still nothing has happened. We've said then in between that time, the explanation has shifted still twice more. We heard that he was doing more design work. Well, that couldn't possibly be true, because he's had so many years to really get that design together. And then now the most recent explanation that you may have heard is that Brookfield, the other real estate company he's working with, is holding him up. What of any of these explanations is true is, I think, anybody's guess, and it's really frustrating to see someone who the city has placed a lot of faith in. I personally didn't, as an opponent of the project, but to see the city really get played like this is incredibly frustrating, and I think that we need a full accounting from Mr. Sinix in public to really tell us what the hell is going on with the project, and just be straight with Burlington, because we can't have a hole in our downtown. That would be a real loss for the city. It's disrupting businesses. I was talking on election night with one of the owners of Single Pebble, the chef there. He said it's really deeply hurting their business. Talked with other business owners, it's hurting them. And it just looks terrible in our downtown. So we really are going to need to start seeing some progress and some answers come out regarding the mall project and what's happening there. We still, as of now, the permits for the foundation have not been pulled. So again, We don't know what's happening there. We'll continue to put pressure on them to give us a full accounting. Hopefully we'll start to hear more of that at the next council meeting or the one after that. But it's really scary to think that, you know, a project that is already in progress may, you know, is running into these issues and these delays because they're really having a deep impact on our community. So with that, I'll stop, open it up to questions from you all.
Hi, Max. And hi, Brian. Hey, Brian. If the developer fails to follow through in a timely manner, can the city use eminent domain to take the land and the streets back?
I'll have to punt that one because that's a legal question, really. It's not a political question, but I don't know the answer to that. I can't even speculate.
I think that what we would be, I mean, I think that that would be a solution that would be far down the line. I think that what we'd ideally be doing, and we don't necessarily want to telegraph exactly what we might be doing to him in terms of the steps, but I think that the idea would be to start with, you know, to start putting pressure on him by taking away certain things, by talking about different legal actions, you know, because the city's given him a lot of leeway, a lot of privileges, shall we say, whether it's parking and taking away parking, the ability to block up basically the city right of way. And then there's also provisions in the development agreement regarding non-compliance on the part of the developer that give us, I think, some legal standing. They're pretty broad provisions, so we're not sure exactly what that could be. But again, I think that what we'll start to see is increasing pressure, and you know, we may get to that kind of a point. I don't know if that's possible because I agree with Brian, but we'll see.
It seems pretty obvious that the developer is not real trustworthy. And if you read yesterday's 7 days, there was some talk in there about interest on the part of the local developer. And that would not only keep it local, but it also mentioned a possible reduction in size of the whole project. And I think most people in here would welcome that. Maybe we could propitiate that whole idea some way. I don't know, but it sounded good to me.
Yeah, it's at this point, it's really just a matter of looking at a crystal ball and sort of speculating what could and would happen, but we don't have anything firm other than the situation that we're in. All we know is that we can tell you, of course, is what's in the paper, is really, you know, because of the sensitivity of that situation around litigation potentially and all of that. So.
Well, and the issue is that Cinex still owns that property, so Cinex would have to be willing, Cinex and Brookfield would have to be willing to sell that property, essentially, for a local developer to stay in. As far as I know, he's not willing to do so at this point. So that seems like, again, it'd be one of those things that would happen down the line, but I don't think we're at that point yet. I don't know about that. I'm not sure.
Hi. My blood pressure goes up every time I walk by the billboards around that project. And I just saw the article in 7 days this week. I'm wondering if that's anything that the city council will take up about getting rid of the billboards, which shouldn't be allowed.
I did inquire early on when they first went up, and I was told that the billboard law actually has a loophole in it. When those billboards are erected in a public right-of-way, apparently for some reason they're not covered by the state law, so maybe our state representatives who are in the room could look at that loophole and close it right up. But apparently it's allowable. That's what I was told.
Just say, though, I've heard from local businesses downtown that they've been denied signage rights because they're oversized. Like, why are we
Apparently there's something in the law that allows for temporary signage, and this is considered temporary because it will not remain. So it has to do with the duration and the location of it, is what I was told.
But I think one thing that was mentioned in the article is that, you know, we can, you know, that per the development agreement, there was things that you would inform the public and post signage regarding that. There was nothing saying that he had to do it in that fashion. And so I think that he could very much be in compliance with the development agreement and the public information that we asked them to put out, while still scaling that back substantially, because I think that those things are just really ugly, and if we're going to have to sit with them for a much longer period than we thought, that doesn't feel great. So, you know, I'm happy to pursue that conversation. I don't know where it will lead, and with the city attorney saying that she feels like it's permitted. I don't know how much we'll be able to get done with it, but I'm certainly happy to try.
Max, I have a quick question. You as an outspoken counselor about this catastrophe, have you been able to sway any of your other city councilors to your point of view lately? Do you have a little bit more support?
I think a lot of councilors, some of whom are being more open-ended about it. Councilor Hartnett, who's here tonight, I think has been pretty public about some of the questions that he has about the project, and I really appreciate that. Other people have really yet to do that, and it's really disappointing to see people saying that we really need to be more patient about it. I think we've been incredibly patient so far, and we've given this person a lot of leeway, and so I think the time for patience is kind of running out.
So I think we only have one state rep left here, and so I just want to say again, to encourage you, Brian, to talk to all the other Burlington state reps about looking into this loophole that allows billboards in this way, and see if you can close it up.
Right behind you.
And any questions on the mall or any other issues?
Yeah.
So my mall question is, I've been also outspokenly disappointed in the current plan. I was very excited about the initial plans, and then, they've slowly gone downhill. And it does I think it does you guys a discredit, or the city council a discredit, to do it in executive session. I think as much as you can do in the open, it would benefit everybody. And I also just encourage you to look at ways to take back some of the concessions that were given, because you were told that if just this one more thing and it would work, just one more thing, and that's been happening ever since the very first design. And I know things change a little bit, but it seems like standard operating procedure. I don't know, we do have a local developer here who didn't quite ask for these number of concessions, though there is developments are not always popular, but this just seems extreme in one of the most valuable pieces of property in our city. So I would just ask you to do whatever you can to make things public and to get the most you can for your constituents.
One of the powers that the city government has is the power to tax. And I know most property is taxed on its assessed value, but when you have someone who's defaced the property and is leaving it there with a giant hole in the ground, I just think that goes beyond normal way property is treated. So I'm just wondering, is there any power that the city has to impose a tax so that forces them to move it along and to conform to more what the city wants, rather than to do what we just heard, keep asking for more, and then they ask for the next thing, and then they ask for the next thing. I think if the city can find a way to get its tax authority and to impose these taxes, these developers will be more cooperative.
It's a point we haven't actually discussed much, Jimmy, but the taxes are set based on the property's status, if you will, on April 1st every year. That's sort of the date. And then they're set for that year, so it's coming up not that far down the road. So maybe that may be a potential tool. I don't know the answer.
So when I think about this, so a lot of people are feeling, and I understand the instinct, to sort of like play hardball with the developer, and that there are a lot of things that we could do to make his life and the life of what he's trying to do harder. And that would sort of increase the likelihood that we would end up with him not finishing the project, and maybe it would turn out in a way that a lot of folks in this room would like better. However, there's also kind of the risk or the guarantee that involves that site remaining empty for longer. And that seems like there's also a lot of concern about just the site being empty. So I'm wondering how we're kind of thinking about that trade-off between maybe getting a project that we think is better in the long run, but having to wait with a hole in the ground for a couple years, and how this sort of how you guys are thinking about that, and how we can kind of get feedback from the room, because I think most people want the hole gone and a different project now, and we definitely can't have both of those things. Thanks.
You had your hand up. Kevin. You did earlier, no? All right. You did. I'll call you out. If you want. Doesn't have to.
I think my question was mostly answered earlier. Really, the question was just, I think a lot of us are kind of just at a loss for what to do next. And it sounds like that's kind of the status that you guys are dealing with too. Kind of grasping at different options to try and leverage someone to do something that clearly they don't want to do. So I don't know if there's any recommendations for what to do when someone's not cooperative. I don't know. And yeah, I'm glad that everyone's speaking up, and I just want to take a moment to say thank you. Yeah, I didn't really have a question.
Thanks. That was, yeah. July has a question though. Huh? We can
Just
we're taking up Councilor Nodell's time too, by the way. She's not here, right?
Just to follow up to his tax question.
3 minutes. We have 3 minutes.
Okay, just follow up to the tax question. What about, for housing, there is a vacant housing tax that's assessed. I think it's weekly, maybe daily. Even
it's every 90 days. You have to get a permit for $500 to possess a vacant building. Yep.
Is there? So is it? It's the same for like housing for a house versus an entire mall.
It doesn't apply when there's no building there. It's for a building. It's called a vacant building ordinance. So lack of building means no vacant building is.
So if you tear down the building, then you can.
Yeah, you can sit vacant for. Yeah, there's no penalty there, according to the ordinance. Yeah. Yeah. Since we have about a minute, I just want to mention there is a public forum on the 6th about the future Memorial Auditorium. Is it a public hearing, Dave, or a committee meeting of the Parks, Art and Culture Committee, or a town hall event at Contois Auditorium the 6th of December at 6 p.m. Okay, want to make sure to get that out.
Thank you guys. Kindly.
Thank you.
We have Chapin, more than educated public works guy, again twice in 1 year. Usually we only get you once a year.
I don't know if that. Assistant Director overseeing parking and traffic. We have the answers to your parking questions tonight, and I'm going to go through very briefly 7 slides, I believe, on proposed overhaul changes to residential parking program. There are some residential parking only streets in the Old North End. Does anybody here live on one of those streets? Okay, a couple people do. Great. Next on the slide. Can you hit the next slide, please? Thank you. As people may know, the residential permit parking program was started in the 1990s. It was started around Centennial Field in the hill section due to impacts of parking with ball games there. And the goal of the residential parking program is to balance the public need to be able to access the street with the need of adjacent neighbors to be able to access their homes. And today, about 8 miles of the 95 miles of streets have residential permit parking on them. Next. So the DPW Commission asked us to do a study of the program. The program's been around for over 2 decades. We did that study. It was approved in 2016, and it's on the website. Next. So we have made a couple of adaptations to the program in the interim since the plan was approved, most notably on the second bullet there. For new residential permit parking applications, such as just happened on Bradley Street, when an application comes in, staff is recommending that there be some level of public parking allowed on the street so that the public has some access to that, to that resource. So that is one change we've made, and then we will go into the other changes that are proposed. One, we're proposing to charge for permits. Currently, permits for residents to park on RPP-only streets. If you can go to the next slide. And thank you for bringing that up. Currently, permits are free. We are proposing $10 per permit per year. Part of the goal here is to not have people get more permits than they actually need, so that the streets aren't oversubscribed, and that dovetails with number 2, capping the number of permits per dwelling unit. Currently, there are there are some units in Burlington that have upwards of 7 permits per unit. We are proposing to limit it to 3 to 4. We are clarifying the documentation to prove residency. We're creating transferable permits, so if somebody doesn't own a car but has someone coming to visit them, they will be able to give the permit to their guest. We are proposing clarification on contractor permits and for fraternities and sororities, and separating it out, Car Share Vermont parking restrictions. So that is a very quick summary. Next, just to talk about next steps, go 3 more slides, because this is the fast version. One more. One more. Next steps. Here we go. So we are taking these proposed changes out on a roadshow to the NPAs. We will be going to the DPW Commission on November 28th to get these changes ratified should the Commission approve them. And with that, I'm going to turn over to Patrick to talk about 2 quick updates, and then happy to answer any questions.
Next slide, please. A couple more.
Yeah. There you go.
If you haven't seen the news lately, we've taken about a year process where we brought in a new, what we call PARC system, and that's an acronym for Parking Access Revenue Control System, and that's for our Marketplace garage and our Lakeview and College Street garages. This is a state-of-the-art system. That's a pay kiosk where you're going to now be able to pay cash or credit at the kiosk before you go back to your car. Once you pay, you have a 20-minute grace period to get to your car and drive out of the garage. But if you have a ticket and you're less than 2 hours, you can go to the next slide. If you're less than 2 hours, we still offer the 2 hours free in all of our garages. We still offer Sundays for free in our garages, and we still offer city-sponsored holidays as free parking. But what the change is you're going to see is the gates are going to be down. That's an exit kiosk that tells you how to hold your ticket against. It's a barcoded ticket. If you hold it 1 inch away from the reader, it'll open. It shows you where to put a credit card in at the exit. You can't pay cash at the exit anymore. You have to pay cash at the pay kiosk. Okay? But again, I want to stress with you, even though the gates are down on Sundays, please, you can still come in and park, pull a ticket, and then go directly to the exit kiosk, the exit gate, and scan your ticket, and it'll let you out of the system. We want to collect data, though. We need to collect our data to find out how many people are actually utilizing our system on Sundays and holidays, and that's why the gates are going to stay down. But this is a cleaner system. We did not get rid of our attendants. We've made them ambassadors. We're using them in a different way within the garage. They'll be there during normal business hours to help and guide you through the system, as well as helping to maintain the cleanliness of our garages to help our maintenance staff out. Okay, so we haven't terminated our people. We've actually gave them a promotion, a couple steps in wage, and added new training for them for customer service training and to be helpful to our customers, you. One of the great benefits, next slide please. One of the great benefits about this new system, it's going to allow us to offer off-peak rates for our residents, meaning we're going to be able to offer you, our residents who live close to the garages, who might not mind a 5-minute walk, to be able to park at night without having to fight for on-street space. and make something at a reduced rate off-peak hours, in by, say, 7, out by 6, something similar to that, Monday through Friday, so you're able to park. So you're not coming home late at night from your second job or from your first job and trying to find a space to park and having to park 3 blocks from your house, when it's dark out like it is now. This is a picture of the Marketplace garage. We've removed a booth from each lane, Market Street, Lakeview, and College Street. Again, these are high-speed lanes, again, allowing you to scan your tickets out. If you're under 2 hours, just go right to your car, drive up to the gate and scan. If you're over 2 hours, please go to the kiosk first, pay with cash or credit. It gives change, maximum $20 bill, please. And everything else is the same. And that's it. Any questions?
Burning parking questions.
Hi, I live on Monroe Street and do have that issue with residential parking in the fact that I come home from work late sometimes and there's just nothing. And one of those issues that contributes to that, I believe, is that there's no lines on the street so that people don't exactly know where to park, and that creates spatial awareness issues. And I think about 2 or more spaces could be added if there were lines that indicated where cars should park on the residential parking streets. Just if you are building more, or creating more of those streets, I think that would be helpful.
You're talking about parking stalls, basically.
Stalls,
The
yes.
identified parking stalls. Okay.
Yes.
Sure.
And the other thing that I have a question about is that there are, I believe on my street there's 2 handicap signs. One of them, I'm almost certain the person doesn't live there anymore, and it takes up about 2 spaces. And that also is an issue, and if that if it's possible to remove those signs, since nobody has ever used it since I've been living there for 6 months.
Okay, and what street is that again?
On Monroe Street.
Monroe?
That's it.
Thank you. You can either submit that through SeeClickFix or through our customer service. I'm going to write this down, but you just request that a handicap parking sign be considered for removal. We'll work with the adjacent property owners, confirm that no one needs it anymore, and we'll bring it to the DPW Commission for removal. Anyone else?
In the back.
Hi, I just had a quick question about the paper waste at the parking garage with all the tickets. Through my job, I have like a plastic parking pass that I scan, and that seems to make a lot of sense, and I'm wondering if it made sense to do something like that instead of paper tickets, and that way there would be the number of plastic passes for all the spaces, and then that would be tracking like if the parking garage is full or not, and then instead of people scanning tickets, they could just return the pass and it would get cycled back through for the next person or something. It just seems like there's constant paper waste.
The proximity card itself is actually a fairly expensive item. It's actually about $4 a piece, and the paper ticket itself is actually much cheaper, and it's a barcode. So whereas the old tickets had a mag stripe on it, if you bent it in half, it was no longer useful. The barcode, you can basically the barcode scanners work just like when you're doing self-checkout at the grocery store. If it's wrinkled a little bit, it'll still read and it'll get out. We'll have waste baskets at the end of our islands for people who want to throw away the tickets. We haven't seen that much of a significant waste, and we actually get more tickets out of a roll of tickets of paper in these machines than we did out of a whole box of the regular tickets with the old ticket system. But I understand your suggestion. Yes, correct. Recycling, yes. But they'll waste container to recycle the tickets.
I just have a question about this map. So yeah, I was going to a question about the map. The Marketplace garage doesn't show an egress out of on South Winooski Avenue. Is that true? Is that changing?
I was asked to bring these last minute, so I was.
That was my thing because people don't know where the parking.
They just show the entrance. They don't show the exits on the parking garages.
Well, I would love to put in a plug for getting rid of that egress because as a bicyclist on Winooski Avenue, it's pretty deadly.
It is a very tough location, and as a cyclist myself, I would agree. And if we built that today, we likely would change the design. We are going through the Winooski Ave corridor study. I would suggest you make that suggestion as part of the corridor study. So we need to take a look at that because there are some blind corners given the brick facing on the garage. So point noted.
And I just wanted to point out on the agenda that you have that all of these links are up here. There's links to the revision to the parking program, links to the downtown and city-owned parking garages. So this is actually a pretty useful website. There's parking in Burlington. There's an interactive parking map. And is this where you got this from, Patrick? Or something like this?
Something like it, but actually our public information officer provided.
Yeah. You're hired, Amanda. Thank you.
and parking rates, bike parking, Park Mobile, which is, maybe Patrick can talk a little bit about that.
Sure. If you're not familiar with Park Mobile is another way to use an app to sign up using a credit card or a debit card tied to your bank account. It allows you to park at our meters. It's another form of paying for parking. It allows you to park at our Lake Street extension, at our Winooski and Main Street lot, and our collaborative agreement with Champlain College at 194 St. Paul, which is also a Park Mobile location. What's really great about this app is you pay for a period of time. If you are going to a meeting, if the meters don't start till 9, but you have to be at your meeting or your doctor's appointment at 8:30 and you have to be at a meter, you can load it in advance. It'll start ticking down at 9 o'clock, so it'll prevent you from getting a ticket, which is nice. If you're delayed in your meeting, it gives you a 15-minute warning. It's about to expire, and you can extend your time. So it's basically a great tool to prevent you from getting a parking ticket with you while paying the moderate amount of parking that you need. And I have cards with Park Mobile where you can download the app and teaches you how to use it if you want any of these, and I'll leave these with Amanda as well.
Oh, and it also it gives a list of all the free parking days. Is there anything else you want to talk about this website? Any other nice things that you like?
Check it out. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then
we're constantly updating this website as well with new information as it presents itself.
Let me see here.
And it gives you directions on how to use the pay stations as well.
And then do you want to talk about snow emergency parking?
We have snow here?
Which I think is probably something that everybody, both downtown and in the surrounding downtown, kind of has an issue with. I don't know if people have off-street parking. But anyway, do you want to talk about that? There's 2 websites, I guess?
Garages are free when city garages, municipally owned garages, have free parking on nights of snow bans. We do ask that people get out early in the morning, and you can call 658-SNOW or check our website if you're unsure whether there's a snow ban if you don't see the blinking lights.
Correct. We do ask that if you see the blinking lights, the time to load into the garage is the free time is from 10 p.m. until in the morning at 7. A lot of people tend to try to load into the garage at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and that prevents us from carrying on normal city business. So I ask that if you see a snow ban coming up, let's try not to load into the garage until after 6 or 7 o'clock at night when everyone can have a fair chance of getting in.
Thanks.
And then I was going to say, with the new parking system, you're supposed to be out of the garage by 8 o'clock. That's when the free parking ends, right?
Right.
So if you don't leave till 9, you only now pay for that 1 extra hour?
Right. It's programmed. I'll go into the system. It's a pre-programmed event, which under a snow event, we'll toggle it, and then it'll revert back at that time, unless we extend it, unless, Chapin authorizes an extension.
No other questions? I have one quick, so the Public Works is that sleepy part of the city that keeps everything moving? We don't get to see you often enough, Chapin. Can you give us maybe what's an exciting thing going on? Just one, for those of us laymen who don't know anything about Public Works.
Thank you. It's not often that I get an opportunity to answer an open-ended question. Look, we have a crew of 125 employees that do often work tirelessly day and night, that don't often get recognized. Our water plant is staffed 24/7. Our wastewater treatment plants, folks come in during storm events to manage. And I want to thank the public for the tremendous support at the bond vote just 2 days ago. Staff has already met this morning planning the improvements to the wastewater treatment plant and to the stormwater system. The discharges from the summer that you all heard about and experienced, unacceptable to you, they were unacceptable to us. We really much appreciate that support, and we're going to work as fast as we can to bring our plants to the needed upgrade that they deserve. Thank you. So if anybody wants a tour of the wastewater treatment plants, we've had a great time offering a couple of tours. Feel free to reach out. There's a lot that often doesn't go seen by the taxpayers of Burlington, but there's a lot of technology in our plants that makes the lake a wonderful place to be. So thank you.
Actually, Jim London just went on a tour, and he loved it. So
yeah.
I just had this mic handed to me, but I had to comment at the mayor's coffee today enthusiastically about the tour of the wastewater plant. Our tour guide, Matt, there just knew everything about it. He was super knowledgeable and totally outgoing and really helped us understand the different ways that water comes into the plant and exits the plant and how they cope with situations like they had this summer. And it gave me a lot of empathy for what they're engineering there constantly. It gave me an appreciation for the actual physical status of the machinery, some of which has been repaired too many times, and that becomes apparent as you're being given the tour. I was really happy to have the opportunity to see firsthand some of the sort of the guts of the city, and if there's an opportunity to go on a tour, it was just a pleasure. If you're a curious person, it's worth it.
Yeah, we had a couple of tours prior to the bond vote. I think at this point we have talked about laying down while it's dark after work, but once it lightens back up in the evening hours, please, they'll be on our website and we'll get the word out, especially as we progress with the improvements. Thanks for the opportunity. Reach out anytime. We appreciate the time.
And the last agenda item we have is our door prize. Who would like to do the actual drawing? Who would like to pick out? Do we have a volunteer? You can just ask. You're not shy, Patrick.
Jared Green. Jared Green.
Oh, see, that's a problem.
Mary McGinnis.
Mary just leave?
She was just.
Wait, is there a second? Oh, Mary.
She might have gone to the
Mary? Ben Doobie.
So for 25, yeah, it's in my coat. Thank you. I'll get it right now. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all. You were hard.
Well, Mary's right there.
Before everyone gets up and leaves, we do need a lot of help cleaning up. Don't be shy. Grab a table, grab a chair, grab a broom. You'll have friends helping clean up.